what's up? Hello, guys. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Tiffany and I do movie reactions here on YouTube. But if you're not new here, welcome back, cinephiles. I know that I just said I do movie reactions, but this is about to be a movie review, and I'll explain why. So earlier, I filmed my full reaction to SLC Punk, as noted on the poll that I had put up on the community tab a couple of weeks ago, and everybody wanted to see my review of, my reaction to SLC Punk, as well as it being the first incarnation in a new series I'm doing. And I filmed that reaction, and I sat down to edit it, and there was not a lick of audio on it. Not a single piece of audio. Because somebody came into my setup and messed with my mic control, and I don't change those settings, so they are very rarely anything that I check. I check everything on my OBS, and I make sure that my camera settings are good, but I never check my mic because I never change a thing of it. All I do is press the button and we go. Since I didn't check those, I didn't notice it. And so now that I'm looking at it, I finally figured it out. Well, this video is supposed to be up tomorrow if I'm staying on my schedule, which I'm really trying hard to do. So, yeah. And I just cannot put myself through watching SLC Punk again today. I had a really rough week, and that's why I waited so long to film it. I had allergies really bad. Today is actually the first day that I'm starting to sound normal again, even though I have a little bit of that sick, congested voice still. And I've just had a lot of crazy stuff going on. I'm dog sitting for my mother for the weekend, and I just had some work stuff going on and stuff like that. So I had to wait to film it, and now that I've filmed it, watching it twice in the same day, it just doesn't, it's not feasible, as well as also having to watch it while I'm doing the editing. I've had this happen once before, when I did Clown in a Cornfield last year around, I want to say June. I actually had not pressed record and had to refilm it the same day, and that was a lot to take on. So I know that you guys did do the poll and you did choose SLC Punk. I did watch the video, and I will be doing a review on what I watched, because I don't want to just say, oh, hey, I didn't have audio, so I'm not going to do the video, because you guys did vote on it, and I am going to try and keep my word about that and do the video. So I will be giving you my thoughts and everything, and we'll go from there. Again, I am sorry that it is not a reaction. It is just very hard for me to film it twice in one day and then edit it and then have it up, because I also work this weekend. It is my weekend to work. So let's go ahead and jump right in, and I'll give you my thoughts on SLC Punk. So the movie centers around two friends, Bob and Steve, known as Heroin Bob and Steve-O, and it is in Salt Lake City in 1985. These friends are identifying as anarchists and punks, hence the name SLC Punk, SLC standing for Salt Lake City, which I didn't know, because I went into this film knowing absolutely nothing about it except for that it starred Matthew Lillard. And I had seen a clip here and there on TikTok of the scene where Devon Sawa's character, Sean, had dropped way too much acid and is sitting on the front porch, like, very still, and then gets arrested. I'd seen that scene floating around YouTube and TikTok for several years, but I had never looked into it or seen the movie. Now, this movie, like every movie, has pros and cons. So right now we will start with the pros. Starting out, this film has an excellent cast. There are very few people that I actually recognized, but some of them are Matthew Lillard. Obviously, he plays the main character, Steve-O. Jason Segel is in there as a character named Mike. I know him from How I Met Your Mother. He was also in Freaks and Geeks, which was a great show. And obviously, I don't even have to tell you, we know Matthew Lillard from Scream, Scooby, Five Nights at Freddy's, She's All That, all of these things. He has done so much stuff, and he is still so prevalent in the acting community today. We also have Christopher McDonald playing Steve-O's father, who I know as Shooter McGavin, and then obviously Devon Sawa plays Sean, and his role is very small, but we know him from Final Destination. He played Casper. I know him from Now and Then. So some very prevalent actors who have had a very vast and wide career both in and out of the horror world. Something really good about having Matthew Lillard in this role is he really can embody any character. He is a very big character actor. We've seen that with him pretty much in anything. I mean, he has been Shaggy in Scooby-Doo since 2001. Like, he did the live action and he has become Shaggy. And he can go in and out of Shaggy. Him playing Stu, it's almost like this man puts on a robe and is that character. So it could be, his green shirt and brown pants and he's Shaggy. Take those off, he puts on that wool sweater and he's Stu again. So he really did do well playing Steve-O. We are in Steve-O's shoes. We are seeing it from his perspective. However, he isn't the most poignant character in the film. He isn't the character that you come to kind of understand more than anything. He isn't the character that gives us a lot of insight. Even throughout the entire film, which has a runtime of 135 minutes, we still don't know that much about Steve. We know that his parents were hippies. We know that he went to pre-law. And we know that at the end of the movie, he decides to go to Harvard Law School. We know that he hooks up with his friend Sandy. There's not much about his character and his beliefs and his choices that we fully understand. And that's something that took me back because I'm used to having films where we're understanding these characters. It's either character-driven or plot-driven, and this didn't have either of those. Where a main character in these types of movies is really known to show us their point of view and everything. That's my mom's dog. He wants to show us his friends, his place, what anarchy is, what being punk is. He's never showing us what he does, why doesn't he want to do this? Why doesn't he want to do that? It's always a reason for punk. So when he's discussing not wanting to go to Harvard Law School, it's never, oh, I don't want to be like this, I don't want to be like that. It's punks can't be like this. Punks can't be like that. It made him very flat. Heroin Bob is actually the most interesting character in the movie because we do get those different sides of him. We see him at the beginning. He has those fears of needles. He has the fear of drugs. We're not really sure why. I mean, obviously everybody should be afraid of stuff like that, but we're not sure why he is. And then we see him in quarantine. We see him falling in love with Trish. We see him understanding that he needs to help his friends, or he wants to be more punk, or he wants to do this. So we see him get in fights. We see him, care about Sean. We follow him more in his journey than we do Steve-O, whereas Steve-O is more like the teacher of the film, if you will. He's teaching us what punk is, where we're experiencing the lifestyle through Bob. And it's not even really experiencing it, it's understanding the evolution of it. How you go from being punk to growing up to finding love to ultimately passing, if you haven't seen this film. We do see that Bob has these depressive moments. I mean, even when he's in quarantine, but then when he gets with Trish, you see this completely different side of him, and he's growing. We see that he starts to understand that you can be more than just a label. You can be something and be more. And that's something that I did mention in the commentary that you won't see because I don't have the audio for it. But you can be punk, goth, preppy, country, and all of these things. And people look at that and they're like, this is your label, stick within it. You have to wear those clothes, listen to that music, act this certain way, like these certain foods, drinks, whatever. But you don't have to be that. Like, you can like punk things and country things and goth things and this and that, and it's okay. But in this, it's very much you stick within your stereotype. And seeing Bob kind of go out of that, like, there's a moment where Steve-O basically says that he can't be in love with Trish because that makes him a poser.
Yes, I love Trish. It's weird, man. I never thought I'd fall in love. Why am I a poser?
You fell in love with a girl, and posers fall in love with a girl.
But Bob is in love with Trish, and I questioned why would that make you a poser? So you're with punks, you're not supposed to ever have love, be loved, have family. What, like, this is basically what you're telling us about punks. So it's like, are you trying to tell us that punks are good, or are you trying to tell us punks are bad? Other than Bob and Steve-O, we actually have some characters that I do enjoy, and that would be Mark, who is British, and he has some interesting ways to deal with his anger issues. Mike, who actually is very preppy, kind of geeky looking. He wears a polo and glasses, but yet he's supposed to be the most hardcore of them all, which I thought was very representative of real life, because we do have a lot of those guys who you think look very scrawny, very geeky, and they wind up being some of the toughest men in the bunch. We have Eddie, who is very clean cut. He, kind of cares about his fashion. He cares about his car and cares about the way he looks. And he is said to get with a lot of girls, which a lot of guys thinks makes him gay. The F slur is thrown around. This movie was made in the 90s and set in the 80s. So I kind of gave it a little bit of leeway, even though I really do not like hearing that slur. We have Trish, who is said to be in her 30s, and she is the partner of Heroin Bob. They have a very interesting relationship. It very much seems dominant submissive to me, but it was very cute nonetheless. We have Sandy, who is... She kind of reminds me a lot of, like, Nancy from The Craft, where she's very depressive, very negative about a lot of things, but she apparently gets around in their group. She apparently dates Heroin Bob like a week before getting with Steve, and then she's with Steve for the majority of the movie, and then she's with somebody else at the very end of the movie. So I didn't really like Sandy's character. I didn't really understand why she was there. She didn't have any lines except for some very vulgar things that she says during a concert where she's basically enticing Steve to perform sexual gratification upon her in the public space. And we have Sean, who is later named Sean the Beggar, and that's Devon Sawa's character, who has a very interesting scene about his mother. But all of these characters play such small roles because we only see them when they're around Steve or Bob. Steve and Bob are our biggest characters in this series. Well, it is a series, there's a sequel, but in this film, because everything is seen through their eyes. Whereas if we saw any of these characters without them there, it would make the film more believable, in my opinion. In this, and I'll get into this later when I talk about, like, the concluding statements and everything, but this film, had it been marketed a different way, would have been a lot easier and a lot more digestible, in my opinion. It kind of gave me a lot of Less Than Zero vibes. And I'm not talking about Less Than Zero, the movie with Andrew McCarthy and Robert Downey Jr. I'm talking about the book by Bret Easton Ellis, except for this had standards and didn't have sexually explicit scenes involving criminal offenses. Let's just put it that way. But it very much can mirror it, because in that book you're going through Clay's eyes to see how the world works. You're going through rich society through his eyes. You're getting these little vignettes of his experiences, and in this, you're also kind of getting those small scenes that don't really connect all that well, but they're like small scenes of what's going on in Bob and Steve's life, and a lot of it has to do with partying. So that's what it kind of reminded me of. Another positive to this film is the irreverency of it all. There is no point to the film. There is absolutely no point to the film. It is not doing anything. It's not trying to get you to see more about the punk's lifestyle. It's not trying to get you to look at the differences between the different social classes or the different statuses of other people, the different cliques that there are. It's just there. It's just there to be there. I could not figure out what film this had reminded me of until I was talking to my partner, and he actually brought up that it reminds him of Dude, Where's My Car? And that clicked. I did not like Dude, Where's My Car? I watched it once and I was like, what is the point to this? And I think it's because I grew up analyzing films quite a bit. And I took a lot of film classes to where I feel like film has to have a point. And it doesn't. It doesn't always have to have a point. But that is my experience in it. And sometimes these films are nice to just put on and not have to really follow and everything. And it's just kind of slice of lifey. But when you're watching it for something like this or something like a reaction, you kind of expect there to be a reason for it. You kind of expect there to be something for you to say, which in a way I was already wondering how I was going to edit that video because there was a lot of the movie I was just like, huh? Okay. All right. It was fine. It was just one of those things where it's like there was no point and I had no idea what they were trying to achieve in the film. But it did have a lot of funny moments. There is a moment where Mark thinks that Bob stole his drugs that are in his house because Bob fell asleep and he can't find his drugs. But Bob is ironically named Heroin Bob when he doesn't do drugs. And so him going after Bob as extreme as he did and thinking, hey, you're the one that took my drugs, but Bob doesn't touch drugs. If anybody in that house touched drugs, it would have been Steve because he's the one that does the drugs, but obviously neither of them did it. There's also a scene where after that, they steal a car and he tries to make it sink into the salt flats and it doesn't work and he freaks out and starts shooting at the car, and I thought that was hilarious because I'm like, it's still not going to work. Even if you shot the tires and it leveled out, it's still not going to work. It's still going to just sit on top of the salt. Devon Sawa's character, Sean, has a moment where he winds up accidentally dropping acid and he begins to think that his mother is a bull, and when she comes into camera, I'm sitting here thinking, no, there's no way that she could be a bull, and then you see her and her shoulder pads are like pointed up in the sky, and she does look like she could be a bull. She actually looks like she could be both the bull and the matador, and so I thought that was very interesting, except for the way that it's shot in these acid trip scenes. There's two of them, Sean's, and then Steve has one with Sandy later in the film. It shot like an acid trip. Like, I thought I was on drugs, and I'm not. It was very jump cutty, very fade in, fade out, very dreamlike sequences, and they were so jumpy that you would finally get your eyes settled on one thing happening, and then automatically there would be another thing. Like, I thought Devon Sawa deep-throated a knife at one point, because I was like, there's no way, and then all of a sudden there was a half goat man coming around the corner, and I thought Mr. Tumnus from Narnia was here. It was very fast, very quick, very irreverent. I was just like, what are we doing here? The same thing happens with Steve and Sandy's acid trip, where you start seeing destruction. You start seeing, colors and everything. And she's like, look, what do you see? And all we see are buildings. But in her and Steve's mind, it's like, a bomb going off and obliterating everything around them. So seeing those moments where we are looking through those characters' eyes and we can kind of see the craziness of the drugs and the pandemics with that and everything, it makes you want to stay as far away from him as possible, which is why you can kind of understand Bob a little bit more. I also thought the relationship between Steve and his parents was really good. They together only appeared in one scene, and then Steve's dad appeared in the second scene later. But they both are successful in their lives, but they had started out as hippies, and they had, very much understood where Steve was coming from about his beliefs and anarchism and his liberties that he wanted to take with his fashion and his hair, as well as, going to school but not continuing, and what he wanted to do with his life. They were very supportive of that while also gently pushing. Steve's father winds up signing him up for Harvard Law School, something that he did not want to do, and instead of Steve getting really mad about it, he was just like, oh, well, that's interesting. Congratulations on going back. And there's not really a lot of talk about it because there's that understanding between them. A lot of us want that understanding from our parents, to where it's like, you may not agree with it and you may not fully understand it, but if you don't understand it, ask questions. And if you don't ask questions, then you have no right to be upset about my lifestyle. So seeing the three of them really have that understanding where they're allowing their child to express themselves and not rebel from the inside was very interesting, because a lot of these characters wind up turning and rebelling because their parents aren't allowing them to express themselves. Characters like these. So next we will be getting into the cons. Again, I will point out that there is no point to this film. It was very much almost like the screenwriter didn't know why they wrote the film. Throughout, there are several explanations that are done about the different social cliques and what anarchism is and why it became, how different drugs react with your system and everything. And it's just like, okay, all of these people are very knowledgeable, but what point are you trying to make to me about the film? Bob talks a lot about chemistry with, when he's talking about Sean dropping acid, and then Steve is constantly talking about the definition of anarchism, and then the Donner Party incident and everything. And it's like, you understand all of these things, but what is the point of telling us? Are you trying to info dump on us, or are you trying to get to a place in your script and film to where we can finally understand the meaning of it all? So it came to me asking myself, is the plot, after watching it, is the plot of this film Steve's journey from childhood to adulthood, and ultimately from anarchism to reality? Is it about the friends that he shared in his life, especially Bob, or is it about the ultimate tragedy that occurs at the end of life? And this kind of reminds me of a quote that I've heard before where it says, your life is over the minute you know you're going to die. So for that, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen the film, when Bob dies at the end of the film and Steve comes down and sees that, is that why we're right here at the end of the film? Because all the fun is now drained out of it. I would love to understand more about this film, because I think that it was well made and I think that the cast did wonderfully, but I just left it wondering, what did I just watch? And not in a bad way, but more of a, I'm really unsure of it at the moment. Something else that I thought that was kind of crazy, crazily done, was the pacing of the film. I had just mentioned where as soon as Bob dies, we're at the very end of the film, because the majority of it is those small vignettes of Steve and Bob's life, mostly when they are at parties. It's the last 15 minutes of the film that are the most crucial. We have Bob's father. We find out that Bob's father doesn't know who he is anymore. It's almost like he has dementia or Alzheimer's as an effect of the alcohol, because they do say that he's an alcoholic and he's a drunk. He doesn't know who Bob is, and when he finally does see Bob, he is questioning, if he's CIA, and attempts to shoot him, which is not okay, because Bob was just coming to visit him on his birthday. Steve then has a blind date with a friend of Trisha's called Brandy, and she is played in a cameo appearance by Summer Phoenix. And Steve has gone this entire time telling Bob that posers fall in love, that he can't fall in love unless he's a poser, that Bob and Trish can't be together because they're posers and everything. And in literally the span of 2 seconds after telling Bob this, he's now claiming to be in love with Brandy, who he has just met. So that was an interesting change of events, but I feel like it was so rushed because we'd gotten to that point in the film where we don't have much time left and there has to be a character arc for these characters. He even makes the commentary in a narration that he winds up marrying Brandy, or he's going to marry Brandy, but he had just met her. One of the biggest hump moments for me in this film was that Bob takes pills. Steve said at the beginning of the film that Bob doesn't take medicine, he doesn't take aspirin, he doesn't take anything like that. But he has a headache at the house party of Brandy's, and one of his friend's girlfriends tells him that he has vitamins, whereas her boyfriend tells him it's candy, and he pops an entire handful of Percodan. And as soon as that happened, I had a horrible feeling about this. That is a ton of prescription drugs, and they make it a point to show you how many pills are in his hand, and then he just throws them back. And as soon as he does that, it kind of came off as a death sentence. It kind of came off, and this is also very evident in today's society, because we do still have that fear of you take one time, you use one time, and it could be your last time. So you try to stay away from it as much as you possibly can, but sometimes you do it and then you wind up dead. Sometimes you do it and you wake up the next morning and you're like, I'm never going to do that again, and it turns into an addiction. Steve winds up taking Bob home and then goes to sleep, and when he wakes up the next morning, he finds that Bob has actually overdosed on the Percodan and the alcohol, which, like I had said, gave me a horrible feeling. And as soon as we saw him, it was like the color drained from my face, and everything that had been light and fun and free about the film really turned dark. Steve only shows emotion for about 2 seconds of this because we are at the end of the film, and then it immediately jumps from finding his body to the funeral. Steve then has his hair cut. There's like 4 people at the funeral in total. Trish looks like Nancy from The Craft now, and that was a jump because she had went at the beginning of the film looking like Morticia to then looking like a Austin Powers fembot, and now she's looking like, Fazira Balk. But it's a big jump. Like, first of all, why is there only 4 people there when you had tons of friends? And why is everybody changing? You gave us in the film the reason for Mark not being there anymore, of him moving back to Miami and nobody finding him again. And Mike went to Notre Dame. What about all the other people? Where's Sandy? Why is she not at the funeral? And if you're going to give us the backgrounds of these other people's fates, why are we not getting that for the rest of the film? Why are you not telling us what happens to Trish? What happens to John the Mod? What happens to Steve-O? Even though Steve-O does in the film saying he's going to Harvard Law School, why are we not getting some kind of like Stand By Me type ending where we do get their circumstances after the film? I feel like that was something that was really missed out upon, because if you've come to make your film about the characters, we need to understand what's going to happen to these characters. Now, granted, in the sequel, this is explored more because I did a little bit of reading about the sequel. I didn't watch it, but it is about Trish and Heroin, Bob's son, that she was pregnant with at the funeral. We don't see this, but obviously it's retconned for the sequel. And Sean the Beggar and John the Mod and Eddie are all in the sequel as well, but Steve-O does not make an appearance. I thought about the pacing of the film as I was watching it, and also after, and I started to wonder if maybe it was a commentary on how your teenage years and your college years are constantly long, whereas then you get to a point in your life where you have to start taking yourself more seriously, and that's when everything stops and everything kind of ends to the point like your childhood ends. Your inhibitions that you can just go and do whatever you want end. It's the time for you to start taking things seriously. Steve's going to Harvard Law School. He's got to kind of give up his anarchism and everything. So is that what this is about, or am I completely off and reading into things? Also, another question I had, and this is completely off, sidetracked and everything, is they say that they are out of college. They've graduated, Steve and Bob, and Mike has been their friend for a while, but yet he's 18 in the movie, and he's about to go to college. So later when they show little Bob and little Steve playing basically D&D and the beginning of their anarchism era, and they mention that Mike's coming, how old is Mike at that time? Like 6? 5 or 6? Like, you made him severely younger than you. It was either you did that on purpose or you just didn't write the script well. While I liked the film, I feel like if it had been made today or even later, it would have been a lot better. We could have gotten into that found footage mockumentary type craze, and it could have been a camera crew following Bob and Steve around, almost like Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, to where we would have gotten more of an explanation as to anarchism and punk ways and everything like that. Or it could have been a lot like How I Met Your Mother, which is also interesting because Jason Segel's in both of them. It could have been Steve explaining to his kids about his life of anarchism. It could have been, we jump forward and Steven as an adult coming to see Bob and Trisha's son and telling him about his father. It could have been a number of things like that instead of just being a very fast-paced, run by the seat of your pants type of film. I liked the movie, but it isn't my favorite. I feel like it has a lot of qualities of a movie you'd put on to watch when you're like folding clothes and doing dishes and vacuuming and stuff. It's almost in the vein of like a reality TV show or a Netflix documentary, but not something that you just sit down to watch because you like it. It's not like a comfort movie, in my opinion. It can definitely be somebody's comfort movie, but it's just not something that I would consider a comfort movie for me. So, all in all, I'm very happy I've seen it. I just don't think it's going to be one that I will go out of my way to buy, or one that I would watch again on a monthly basis or even yearly basis. However, this is the start of a new series on this channel called Why the Bleep Haven't I Watched This Yet? Because I know that a lot of people have watched SLC Punk and enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it as well. I just wanted so much more from it. But this series is going to entail me watching a bunch of movies that I haven't seen yet, but everybody seems to have seen. Movies like The Terminator, Alice in Wonderland, Donnie Darko, movies like that I should probably have seen by now, but I haven't. So if you'll go ahead and do me a favor and go down in the comment section below and leave me a list of movies, preferably horror movies, that you think everybody should see and I might not have seen yet, or non-horror if you want to, that's fine, that you think that I should watch. Not necessarily like what your favorite movie is, but like what are movies that you feel like everybody should see at least once. And I know that this isn't the video that you guys wanted. It's not the reaction to SLC Punk, and I am sorry about that. But at least I am getting something out there about this film. This review might have been a little all over the place, but I honestly don't know much about the film. I don't have much to say about the film. I watched the film and I'm still not sure what I watched. So go ahead and do me a favor down in the comments section below while you're leaving me a movie. Go ahead and let me know what your take on this film was and why it was what it was. I would love to hear your opinions and your thoughts on this. I love clinical thinking and critical thinking and all of that about this kind of stuff. I love like esoterical works about the meaning in films. So this will be very interesting to read your guys' thoughts. Also, go ahead and consider giving this video a like if you enjoyed, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We have made it over 300 subscribers, and we are closer and closer to 500 every day. I wanted to be at 500 by the end of the year. That is kind of my goal. But when I was thinking about that, I realized that April 27th is the 1-year anniversary of this channel. So literally in about a month. And that is crazy to believe that I've been doing this for a year now. That I have made, I think, upwards of 86 videos for this channel already, and I am having no issues yet. I am not slowing down at all. I am in awe of where we are at now. And I definitely want to do a slasher film for our 1-year anniversary video, and I want it to be a slasher film I haven't seen yet. So I'm going to have to do some research, and go ahead, please. Leave a third comment. Let me know if you know any slasher films that I might not have seen yet. It might be even for the Why the Bleep Haven't I Seen This. But that would be really cool. And I just want to say thank you for being here with me. Thank you for understanding that this had to be a review instead of a reaction. And that I am very happy to have you all as a part of this community. Until next time, cinephiles.